The number one mistake that I see over and over again is they try to do everything themselves. You're the only one that can write your book. But there are plenty of people that can help you. For some reason, there's a stigma, like if you're an independent, you have to be everything. You have to be the whole publishing house, and that's just simply not true.
Welcome back to the Business of Christian Fiction podcast. I'm so excited to introduce you to my guest today. Marline Williams is one of those rare people that writes fiction but has a background in marketing, specifically as a copywriter in the advertising world. And so I'm excited to talk about things that have to do with marketing today and how maybe it's not the necessary evil that we all view it as in the writing world, and how it can actually help us as a fiction writer. And so welcome, Marline. I'm so excited to have you on.
Rachel, I am thrilled. As I mentioned before we started taping, I am a fan, and your preparation, I would give like 5 stars. If we could review your preparation sheet that you sent me, I'd give it 5 stars on Amazon. So great job.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm excited to get talking. And so we're going to jump right in. I want to get your perspective as somebody who has decades of experience in the advertising world. What is the number one mistake you see fiction writers make when they are marketing or promoting their books?
For starters, a lot of authors don't know anything about marketing, God bless them, and it freaks them out. They get a little weirded out, and so they just run off in a million directions. But the number one mistake that I see over and over again is that they try to do everything themselves. Especially independent authors. They're not skilled or talented. It's kind of like me saying, I'm going to wallpaper my house and it's going to take me 7 years, but versus hiring someone and it's going to take them, like an hour. So that is the number one mistake I see is I call it amateur night. Time is money. So outsource whatever you can't do. Just outsource it and don't feel like you have to do it all. Skimping on cover design, or if you can't work Canva, and some of us can't, just hire somebody. There's somebody who would love to pick up a job or to build up their resume. So, work up with them or do some kind of bartering or something. But for Pete's sake, if you're not a designer, you're not a designer. And I've seen some tragic book covers that just scream amateur. And we all know, I don't care what the proverb is that you can't judge a book by your cover. We all do. We all judge a book by its cover. Am I right? Like you pick something up and you're like, okay, this looks like a 3rd grade project. I'm going to pass on that because if this is the cover, imagine the writing. So I would say that's my number one is if you can't do these things, there's no shame. No, as my kids would say, no harm, no foul. Just hire somebody. And there are plenty of people out there just dying to get some pickup work. So give them a break and hire them.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I thought you were going to go a completely different direction, but that makes a lot of sense because we are first and foremost, we're writers, right? This is our craft. This is our art. And I think all of us would say like, we understand that we don't know all the business things. And that might actually be why a lot of people pursue the traditional publishing route. But even in that route, you have to do some things that are marketing and promotion that maybe your publisher isn't giving you the support for. And even in that, you can hire people to help you.
You're the only one that can write your book. But there are plenty of people that can help you. If you give them a good creative brief and you tell them exactly what you're looking for, and then you're super bossy like me and you hang over their shoulder and you say, could you move that over 1/8 of an inch? Because I think that, you're going to get the cover that you dream of, and it's going to express your book, and you're going to have a much better chance of success.
Yeah. So to repeat that, because that was a beautiful nugget right there. You are the only one who can write your book, but there are plenty of people who can help you market and promote it. I love that. I was just talking to my husband yesterday about his job. He's a project manager. And I said to him, like, hon, you are just not delegating enough. You have people on your team to delegate to. You need to delegate. And then there was a little voice in the back of my head that's like, and what are you delegating?
Do you hear yourself?
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
And like I said, I never do my own plumbing or electrical work either. I'm not ashamed of that. But for some reason, there's a stigma. Like if you're an independent, you have to be everything. You have to be the whole
Mhm.
publishing house, and that's just simply not true.
So true. What are some roles that you think people could hire out? I mean, obviously, you've mentioned
Oh,
the cover, but what
well, web design for starters. There's a lot of people that tell you, "Oh, this is so easy." I'm sorry, it's not intuitive for everyone. They're just like, "It's so intuitive." I'm like, "Okay, apparently not, because I don't know what end is up in this." So, hiring a great web designer, hiring an editor and a proofreader. I made my living as an editor and a proofreader, but I would never think
Yeah,
to just let myself like, "Oh, this is fine."
yeah.
Because your brain gestalts what you haven't written. It's telling you, "Well, of course that sentence is perfect." But then your proofreader and your editor comes along and says, "Did you notice that you flipped tenses in the middle of this sentence? Or did you notice you never even finished that sentence?" So, I think a proofing person, an editor, if you need line edits or developmental edits, that's great too. If you have an ad agency or if you have a publishing house, they have all these different departments. Right, so they have a marketing department, they have a department for promotions, which is different than marketing. So if you need somebody to, um, plan your launch party or, get a hold of a bunch of Instagram things, if you're not on Twitter and somebody is, just hand them your stuff and let them go to town, and all you have to do is basically, like you said, like your husband's job, you're project managing, but you don't have to
Mhm.
do all of the detail work. So those were the big things for me was cover design and, editing and proofing. And I do my own a lot of my own marketing because that's my background, and I genuinely enjoy it. But
Mhm.
I hate making little memes and things on Canva. I just hate it. So let somebody that's the joy of their existence, let them do it.
Yeah, and just so for those listening, there are people, they're virtual assistants, VAs, who have different
Yes.
when you're researching VAs, look at what they have experience in because they all have their
Yeah.
different kind of niches
Yes.
that they are good at and they enjoy doing, and they tell you that. And so
Mhm.
I have worked with VAs who are really good with the graphic design. I've worked with VAs who are more about editing my podcast. So, you can
Yeah.
research and find people that can do the things. And we're talking about hiring people, but you can always ask friends and family
Yes.
members who have these skill sets, like somebody who's good at organizing events could organize your book launch
For
party.
sure. Yeah.
So make sure that you're not just thinking, oh, I have to hire people. Cause I know those of us with smaller budgets for their marketing
Yeah.
might kind of panic a little bit like, oh, now I have to hire all these people. You can ask your friends and family, and more than likely, they want to help you out. And like you
Sure.
said, some might even want to build up a resume. Maybe somebody's wanting to get
Yes.
back into the career roles or a stay-at-home mom that has been out of it for a while might need to kinda start building back up her
Yes.
portfolio.
Yes.
So just think creatively, think outside the box, but delegate and get help.
Get help, get help. That's exactly it. And I know that I had some editors who approached me they'd only had 1 or 2 projects, and they were trying to build up their portfolio, and they said, "I'll do it, like, dirt cheap." And
Mhm.
so you send them a little sample, and you see if you're gonna be a good team, you're gonna be simpatico, and then you can take it from there. And you can put out an SOS on any number of, Facebook groups or other groups where there are gatherings of authors and the publishing types. Formatting. Maybe you don't know how to format worth a ding dong, but somebody else is just a Vellum or an Atticus Whiz. Give it to them. They would
Mhm.
love to help you. I just got an LLC and I thought I would never live to tell the tale. It was just murder for me because I'm just a financial idiot.
Yeah.
Those kind of things, if there's someone in your family or somebody that has a legal background or a tax background or a banking background, just go and say, "I'll make you a pizza if you help me out," or whatever it
Right.
takes.
Exactly. Um, I chuckled when you said the LLC thing because I actually hired somebody to do that for me.
See?
So,
Yeah,
because
it's
I'm like, I'm
basically
not
like,
messing around with this. I
how
don't need to
how
waste my
how hard
hours on
can
this.
this be? And then you look at it and you're like, "Oh, it's that hard. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, that's hard." Yes. Yeah.
Well, as I was preparing for our conversation today, I was reading through your bio on your website, and two things stood out to me. First, the fact that every word on your website and your social media tells me exactly who you are as a writer, the type of stories you are telling, who you are writing to, and why they would want to read your stories. And then also, you wrote it in an engaging, witty, and very much your unique voice way. And so obviously you have had years of practice having worked in the advertising world, but can you share with us a few best practices you've learned in your 25 years of working with an ad agency that you now apply as a fiction writer?
Oh, I would love to. I'm sure there are some of your viewers that are or your listeners, your audience, who are saying, "Well, those were wasted years. My hard work was just to make a paycheck, and they really don't it doesn't have any lingering afterglow." And I'm here to tell you that the Lord will use whatever He has taken you through to bring you through what the next thing that He wants to put into your life. And whether you can connect the dots or not, He can. I thought 25 years, I was in the gulag for 25 years, and now I'm out, and, like, I'm just gonna put those behind me like Paul and never look at them again. I have 3 things, these are my top 3 things that, working in what I call a Mad Men style advertising agency, and by that I mean just, like, lots of levels of approvals, bosses who have bosses who have bosses, committees, all of that kind of, thing that you see on TV, it's real. And, so the first thing I would say is learn to cut your losses, and you learn that in the advertising world because you have a great idea. You brainstorm with your team, and they have a fantastic idea for a new ad campaign. So you bring it to your boss, and your boss says, "Hey, that's pretty good. We like that." When you tweak it a little, and then you take it to your boss's boss, and they say, "Oh, that's pretty good." Then you take it to your boss's boss's boss, and he says, "I don't like the color yellow." And all of a sudden, your entire campaign is collapsed, and you're like, "Oh, okay, so we got to start from scratch." Now you can sit around and uh, cry into your beer, whatever, or you can say, "All right, dust yourself off, let's pivot, let's go in another direction." And this is what happened to me. I came into, publishing. I came out of retirement and I was like, "Now at last I have the time to do this. This is so fabulous." And, I had all these NaNoWriMo, things in the drawer that I have done for years. I'm like, "Okay, I'm going for it. I'm going full bore. I'm gonna go into traditional publishing. I'm gonna get an agent." And, you have sparkles in your eyes and you're skipping through life with your petticoat showing, you're all excited. So, you go into this and you have no idea what you don't know. It's a huge undertaking, but you don't realize that. You think you're Louisa May Alcott or Little Women, and you're gonna just write something and send it off, and they're gonna love you. You send your book out into the world, into this unsuspecting world. You send it to agents, you send it to publishers, you send it to more agents, and then you get rejection letters, and I thought, "Okay, I've heard that if you go to a writers conference and you meet people, that's the key, that's the ticket." So I went to my first writers conference last year. So I've only been retired for 3 years, and the first year is like you sleep for a year, and then you wake up and realize you're okay. And then I started writing again, and then I went to this writers conference, and I brought my baby, my paper baby, and, I sat in front of an acquisitions editor, fiction acquisitions editor from a big Christian house, which shall remain nameless. And, she said, "I love your idea. I love this. It sounds great, but, do you have anything else? Because nobody wants to read about the 1970s. There's, like, 0 comp titles, and, there's a reason for that because people just aren't interested." And I was like, "Excuse me?" And so she said, "Could you come back in 10 years?" And I thought, "I could be dead in 10 years. No, I'm not coming back in 10 years." So then I went to the award-winning agent, which was my next 5 minute you have your 5 minutes of fame, so you just gotta give it all you're giving it all you got. And she said, "Oh, I love this." She read this. She said, "I love your title. I love your book. I love everything about this. This is so great." She said, but here's the problem. I can't sell it. I can't get this past a pub board." And I said, "Well, how is this possible? Could you just ask? Let me at them. 'Em. I'll ask them. I think I can talk them into it." And she was like, "No, it just won't sell." She said, "Maybe you could make it a time jump." And I'm like, "It's not a time jump." So she's trying to help me understand there's trends, there's tropes that are trendy, there's, the popular thing right now. So if you could just change what you wanna write or change the way you write it, we'll be fine. And I was just like, "Oh, that's a hard no." But then here's the cut the losses thing. Is like, okay, I could keep trying to tweak this and try to get them to like it or accept it. Or I can say to myself, "You know what? Cut your losses. Just pull the plug on the traditional and go independent." And that was really hard for me because in my generation, independent publishing or self-publishing was considered a stigma. The reason you went that way is because you couldn't cut it as a writer. You were just
Right.
it was a vanity press kind of thing. It's like, "Oh, it's like Prince and Purple Rain." You're like, "Oh, this is a tragic thing. You're just doing this because nobody really will buy it from you." And that's what your former guest, the British gentleman Richard Collins said, right? Is that his book was so out of genre that they
Right.
didn't know what to do with it, so they just kinda said, "Sorry, we just don't know." And so he made the same rookie mistake I did. He went to a hybrid publisher. And the hybrid publishers are you don't realize that they're, from the 7th circle of hell until you find out, until somebody tells you. And then you're like, "Oh, well, that's swell. I just sunk thousands of dollars and, I
Mhm.
handed it to Satan on a plate." So, so then all of a sudden you're panicky, like, "Okay, well, I'll just have to make the best of this. I've
Mhm.
already spent this money." Or you can cut your losses again and say, "All right, that's a $2,000 expensive lesson in life that I just learned. So I'm just gonna pull the ripcord and get out of that one too." So that's what I did. I cut my losses after a year of intense chasing traditional, doing everything that every expensive course told me to do. I
Mhm.
realized I do have another choice. I can do this myself. So I call it like the little red hen mindset, right? "I'll do it myself," said the little red hen, and she did. And making that decision, Rachel, it was just so incredibly liberating
Mm.
because I realized now I can write what I want about what I want, and I don't have to chase trends because some big publishing house says, "Listen, this is the only way we can make money." And that's legit for them, right? Their
Mhm.
business. They're in it to make
Right.
money. So
Mhm.
that's the first thing is cut your losses. When you come to a point and you realize, the work that I have to do in order to get this to where I thought I wanted it is not going to have any ROI. So we've reached the diminishing returns part of the story, and we're going to just start, "Okay, we're just gonna pivot now." So that was the first thing.
I often have said to writers, if you're not going to go the traditional publishing route, go to the indie route
Yeah.
because the hybrid just takes your money and takes your royalty. And so
Yes.
you sink payment into this, and then
Yes.
they get a portion of the profit. If you're going to make that kind of investment into your book, you might as well be reaping the profit side of it.
For sure, and the other part is then they are the publisher of record, so anybody that knows anything looks at the spine and they're like, "PU, are you kidding me? You went with
Mhm.
them?" So, there it's just that reputation just sort of haunts you for the rest of your career.
Yeah, you have to be careful about those contracts you get into with the hybrid because they can retain the rights to your book.
Yes,
And then you can't
yes.
do anything with it and you can't do any kind of special kind of promotional
How
things with it.
horrible. Wouldn't that just break your heart? Because here you've poured, who knows, years, certainly months of your life into this, and it's your blood, sweat, and tears, and somebody else is just walking off with it, and you are helpless. You're legally helpless. So, yes,
Right.
please, dear listener, dear audience, heed us. This is a
Yeah.
for real thing. It really is tragic.
It is not to say like all hybrids are out to get you.
No,
It's not.
no,
I
not
think
all. No.
there's some that are really genuinely trying to help
Yes,
the
yes, there
writers
are.
and but just be very cautious when you're walking into a contract with a hybrid. Make sure you read the fine print. Don't ever let fear make you make that decision to go with somebody that
Yes.
buys the rights to your work.
Preach,
If
preach,
you
Rachel,
think
preach.
if you think that you can't do it, I would just caution you to just take a breather, do some research,
Mhm,
talk to indie
mhm.
authors, find out who they have hired, how they've done the things, because I think you'd be surprised to find out that there is a lot of support as an indie
Yes,
author, and you can find people to delegate things to, like we were talking about earlier,
yes,
and
yes,
still retain the profit from your work, the rights to your work, the
yes,
ability to be creative with how you market your work. And so it just it kills me to see when people go into contracts out of fear. Don't ever
yes.
go into a contract out of fear thinking that you cannot do something. Put a pause
Right.
on it, take a step back, take a breather, and research your options before you do it.
Well, doesn't that tie in with the Second Timothy verses, like, God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of
Yes.
love and of self-control or a sound mind. So if you're feeling freaked out and you have a full
Yeah.
body sweat going and you're about to sign something, that is your body and the Holy Spirit trying to give you a heads up, like a warning flag, be careful. So listen to that. And When we build things, when we do things out of fear or anger, there's little to no blessing in that.
Mm,
You really do not feel like you're walking on a path with God's favor shining upon you. You're just kind of skulking through the corners going, "Oh my gosh, are they gonna catch up with me? Is this legally okay?" And that's a terrible place. I mean, you're already, nervous enough about your work, but to add that extra layer of anxiety, it's just there's no reason to do that. On Instagram, there is a huge, super supportive group
yeah.
of Christian authors. I'm here to tell y'all, if you haven't been out there because you're like me, you PTSD, um, brave yourself and
Yeah.
get out there. So come on in, the water's fine, is what I
Yes,
want to say.
definitely. Okay, so that was point 1 that you learned was to
Yes.
cut your losses. So what are the other 2?
The second one is don't design by committee. And you learn this in
Mhm,
the advertising world. If you're sitting around in a room, and I saw a Dilbert cartoon once, and he had the word "the" up on a whiteboard, right? He just had the word "the," and everybody in the committee was picking apart the word "the," and one of them is like, "This ain't Shakespeare, that's a little highfalutin," and another one was saying like, "This is a little definite, can't we just say something a little more vague? I'm not sure." So everybody was picking it apart, and I'm like, I feel that. I feel that. I have been there before. I know what that feels like. So if you're part of a cohort or part of a group, or you have beta readers or alpha readers and things like that, just bear in mind, everybody has an opinion. And not every opinion should be weighted equally. We call it the principle of I think it's called HIPPO, highest paid person in the room or in the office. So you want to listen to somebody who really knows what they're talking about. And ultimately, the expert on your book is you. You know what you wrote it about. You know your target audience. So these people might be very well intentioned. You're going to protect your book like nobody else, right? You
mhm.
know your book. So you can listen with grace and you can say, "Thank you so much for your feedback. I really appreciate the time that you took." But you don't have to change your manuscript every time somebody makes a random comment because they like books about dogs and your book doesn't have a dog in it. You're like, "Gee, should I put in a dog? Oh, maybe I should put in a dog." You don't have to put in a dog, not
Yeah,
even a puppy. Just leave your book alone.
yeah.
So
Oh,
I
I
think
love
that's the
that.
big one.
I
That's a
love
big
that
one.
one. Definitely see that. I love that idea of, was it how did
Hip
you
hip I think it's hippo. That's highest, like HI, highest paid person in the office maybe, so hippo.
oh, office, okay. I like that idea. I think you're right, like, we're the highest paid person in the room.
You
We're like the CEO of our
Yes, that's a
publishing,
great way to put it, that's right.
right? And so at the end of the day, the decision stops with us. And we can
Yes.
take the feedback and we can take the wisdom of others, but at the end of the day, we're the one that has been entrusted to
Yes.
steward this creativity, and we
Beautiful.
answer to God. And so at the end of the day, we have to make that decision and
Yes.
do it with confidence. Oh my goodness, I am in it right now. I'm in the middle of writing, doing a rewrite actually.
Mm.
And I have had others read this manuscript before
Oh,
in various iterations, and
yes,
they have
yes.
made comments on it. Now,
Mhm.
I'm doing the rewrite because I know my writing has improved significantly in the past
Yes.
5 years since I wrote
Yes.
the original
Mhm.
draft. And so that's why I'm doing the rewrite. But there have been times when people's comments about the book have kind of come through and they're like, okay, well, remember so and so said this about the story.
Yes.
Do you want to maybe change this? And I have to
Mhm.
just keep going back to the fact that, yes, I know my book is not going to fall within the like typical norms, the tropes, the things that
Yes.
typically
Oh,
say people say sell. And I know
yes.
that.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, this is what the Lord has entrusted to me.
Mm.
I know this is what the book is supposed to be.
Yeah,
And I'm
good
going to
girl.
trust that at some point, the right reader is going to pick that book up and they will resonate with it and it will speak to them. And that's what I'm
Preach.
trusting. And
Yes.
so I love that idea. I'm going to use that term now from now on. I'm the hippo.
You're the hippo.
I'm
You
the
have the
hippo.
most skin in the game. Maybe you've seen the Kevin Costner movie, The Field of Dreams, and the tagline was, "If you build it, they will come."
Yep.
So you are building a book. God has said, "Here's a book for so and so." And if you start taking out the parts that are going to resonate, that are really going to speak to that target reader, then you are robbing your reader, your future reader of an experience that God put in your heart to
Mm,
share with that person. There's there's just an integrity that we have to stick to as writers. This
mhm,
is what God intended me to write, and I am going to defend my pea patch here. I'm going to write what he told me to write. And
mhm.
yes, feedback like, "I don't understand the ending of chapter 3," that's legit, but,
Yeah.
"Oh, I
And
really
if
don't
more
like
than
that
one
guy."
person says it, if more than
Yes,
one person brings up the same
3.
right, then you start to pay attention, right?
Mhm.
I think the thing that we forget is that we assembled beta readers, and the people we assemble aren't always our reader.
That's correct.
And so they're reading it from one lens. A friend and I were just discussing this because her book is from a very specific point of view and it resonated with me. I'm like, I would be your reader.
Ye
Like, I read it and I was like, that's a really powerful opening scene. I
Mhm.
love it. I've seen
Right.
myself in the
You feel
character.
yourself in that,
I've
right.
been there. I have literally done what that character is doing. And she's like, well, I submitted it to an award, like contest thing. And the
Oh,
feedback she got from them was like, oh, this is a really weak opening. And
yes.
she struggled with it. And I'm like, no,
Mhm.
you have to trust. You know who
Yep.
your reader is.
Yes,
And so
yes.
just remember that when you have beta readers, just be careful. Make sure that you have an assortment. I would say out of your beta readers, have a few that would be who your target audience is,
Mhm.
a few that are writers who can speak to kind of more the technical side of what
Yes,
you're
good
doing,
point. Yes.
and then a few that are just maybe a little bit outside of your readership and not writers, just readers, people who
Just
read a
readers.
lot and
People
see
who
how it
love to
resonates
read.
with them. Yeah.
Yes.
And get feedback from all of them. And like you said, not everybody's opinion holds the same weight.
Oh, no. It's the rule of 3, right? If 3 people say it, then you have to say, maybe that's a problem. Maybe I
Yeah.
need to focus on that a little bit more."
Right.
I wish that I had listened to my own character in this
Mhm.
regard when I was writing this book because she was, like, trying to get through to me, and I'm sure you write fiction, of course,
Yes.
so,
Yeah.
you know that your characters will sometimes put their heels in and say, "Absolutely not, hard stop, no, I'm not
Yes.
doing that," and you're like, who's in charge here, me?" And they're like, "I beg your pardon, it's me."
Yes.
So, like, my character in the book that I'm, promoting today is it's called All Men Are Liars. Yes, you heard that right, that's my title, and, the main character is a young woman who feels that she has to conform to, like, a standard issue, churchy kind of Christianity, even though she's just a newly baptized Jesus freak, she feels she has to conform in order to get a boyfriend, fit in, and all of this stuff. So, it's a question of conformity
Mhm.
to orthodoxy, and I thought, "Do you not hear the words coming out of your head? Th You are talking about conforming to orthodoxy in being a traditionally published person. You must conform. You don't have the option. That's the platform. You have to conform." And, so we have that issue, and I thought, "Well, I need to listen to what she's saying here. I need to, this is a message from my soul to myself." Like,
Yeah.
stop trying to conform. You're nonconformist. You're a child of the 1960s and 70s, baby. We eat nonconformity for breakfast. We are anti-establishment. Abby Hoffman wrote a book called Steal This Book, and we all went, "Yes!"
Yes.
We're out in the streets protesting. We're waving protest signs. We're demonstrating. We're having sit downs. This is my generation. And all of a sudden, I have to be sitting there nicely and neatly and being Marsha Brady, this is ridiculous. So I needed to listen to myself. What scared me the most about traditional publishing was that committee aspect, because I'd
Mhm.
lived that for 25 years. And I knew that if my defenseless book got into a room, they'd be like, that cover is wrong. The title is too, somebody actually suggested, I think you should change your title to All Humans Are Liars. And I'm like, does that have the same impact to you? Are you out of your gourd?
Yeah.
So can you just imagine a traditionally published house saying, that's a great title. We're keeping it. No,
Not a Christian and traditional
no,
publisher. No.
no, 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 no. Yeah, no. And a friend of mine, who just wrote a book, she said that she submitted all of these titles. She got a nice contract, a 2-book contract with a big name, and they didn't take any of her titles, and they have a titling committee. This
Mhm.
literally turned my stomach when I first heard that, Rachel. I was like, "They have a what?" Everybody
Mhm.
sits around and discusses which title would be most SEO alert and which one is close enough to other titles so that people that like that book, which I call book-alikes, If they
Mhm.
like this book, they're gonna like this book, and I just thought, "That's revolting to me."
Mhm.
So, don't design by committee, but for us, for writers, don't don't hang your hat on, "The committee likes it, so it's gonna be good," because you never know what God is gonna do. Don't rule out what God can do with your work
Right.
because it could really amaze you. And then the third thing is, the time is money. So outsource. We actually covered that one, is
Yeah,
that outsource what you need to, and there's no shame in that.
exactly. Well, I love what you just said about listening to your character and realizing that she was trying to speak to you a little bit about what you were doing. Why do you think you were so set on the traditional publishing at first and resistant to going out on your own?
That's a great question, Rachel. I think it's because of my generation. It was like this was the gold medal. If you could make it in traditional publishing, it was somehow affirming, like you were
Mm,
getting an affirmation stamp from important people who knew lots of stuff that you didn't. That yes, you have talent. Yes, you know how to write. And there was that sense of certification, almost of permission. The powers that be have granted me the golden ticket, and now I can go out there and prove to the world, all those people who said I couldn't write, so there, take that, there I am. It felt like the only option. Like if you weren't going to be traditionally published, what would you do? Even 10 or 15 years ago, you didn't have those kind of options where you had Atticus and Vellum, where you could format your own
yeah.
book. You were dependent. That was pretty much the only way to get your book out there. And I love
Mhm.
what you said on another podcast. You were talking, I think it was to Richard Collins, where you were talking about how important it is to do what we have to do in order to get our book out there to our reader. And for my generation, that was the option. You either had Vanity Press, which meant that you and your 15 of your relatives wound up with books in their stockings for Christmas, or you were traditionally published and they did all the work for you. And now that has been disbanded. That really is not the case anymore. So I'm sure that was a big part of it. And if you talk to people in my age bracket, they will tell you that there is a real stigma. You have to say to yourself, "That's not the way people think about it nowadays." But
Right.
back in the day, if you were not traditionally published, you were not considered a real author, and people used to say that, "You're not a real author unless you're traditionally published."
You keep saying my generation. I'm like, same thing for
Do you still
me.
feel
Like,
it? Yeah.
I think it's gotten oh so much better. But right out of college, I interned with a Christian publisher, and at that point, the internet had picked up and the ability to email submissions had, like, gone through the roof, and that's when they all started going, "No more unsolicited,
Right, well, that makes sense, right? It would be
manuscripts," right?
thou
They're like, "We just can't keep up with it."
Mhm.
And so when I interned with them, they had a fax machine. That was your last ditch effort to not go
Yes,
through an agent or
right.
go to a conference. You could fax them a one-page query letter, and there
Yeah,
it was the receptionist's job to read through them. And so she would sift through those, and then she'd
yeah,
give the rest to the acquisitions editor. And even then, and this was early 2000s, even then, there was a stigma about those just going off and doing their own thing, and that e-reader had just come out that summer, and the editors were all debating about whether or not this would take off, and it was like this, like, big deal that summer, and
that's
I just think back
hilarious.
about that, about how it was kinda like this pivot. Right at that time, it kinda shifted from, we have this stigma about
Mhm.
this world of, self-publishing, to now,
Yeah,
not even 20 years later, just completely a different perspective about it,
yeah,
and how it is now become a very, um, acceptable
yeah.
in a very valid way to get your work out there. And I think that as authors, we have to take a step back and ask ourselves, what is the best way for me to get my book to my reader?
Yes.
And is it the traditional model? Is it the self-publishing model? At the end of the day, you are the publisher of your book,
Yes,
and you're
yes,
either going to outsource the process to a traditional publisher, or you're gonna
yeah.
outsource it to people you hire,
Yes.
really, at the end of the day.
I wanted to add, there's a scripture in Psalm 27. Some trust in chariots and some trust in horses, but we will remember the name of the Lord our God.
Yeah.
And I think of the chariot as the vessels, right? The things that carry. So
Mhm.
those would be your social media numbers, your platform numbers, your traditional publishers thing. That's trusting in the chariot. Trusting in the horses is the power. That's the big names, the power in the publishing houses. You can use them, but you don't trust in them, right? But we, Christians, we will remember the name of the Lord our God and know that if he opens a door, it's going to be open. If he closes the door, it's going to stay shut. And so
Yeah.
respect that door. Don't pound it down. Don't bloody your knuckles pounding it down. Let the door go and just wait to see what he's going to open up to you because it's going to be beautiful and it's going to be blessed.
I love that. I was just reading, I don't know what psalm I was in because all I could remember was, my God is my rock, the God is my rock, and so I looked it up and I was just reading through the whole psalm because I was like, "What is this?"
Yeah.
David wrote it right after he had been delivered from Saul, and what struck me as interesting is that both both praises God for being his salvation, right? For making things happen, for winning the battle for him. But
Yeah.
he also praises God for um, making David a strong warrior
Yeah.
and making
Good
him
point.
able to go out and
Mhm.
do the battle. And I just
Yes.
thought, I think sometimes in the writing space, we talk about God opening the doors, but we forget the other part where he equips us to walk through the door. And so
Yes.
I want to kind of shift the conversation just for a little bit here about
Sure.
what you think we could do. I had mentioned when we first began about how sometimes in the writing space, we can treat marketing as like a necessary evil and we don't like it because it feels kind of slimy and
Right.
self-promotional and all these things.
Right.
How are you approaching the marketing and promotion of your book, having all these years in the marketing world and the advertising
Mhm.
world? And you even put on your website, you know, selling things to people that they don't necessarily need, right? Like
With money
asking
they don't
people to
have, right.
with money they don't have, right? And I love that line that you had written. And so I'm just curious, like, how are you going to approach marketing your book when it debuts in September? And having had all this experience, how are you going to position it so it doesn't feel slimy and self promotional and trusting in the Lord, but knowing He's equipped you with these things?
I am so glad you asked that because there's a couple of verses that I keep going back to. One of them is that chariots and horses verse, and another one is when Jesus is talking about the parable of the light, right? There's a light, and he says, if you have a light, you don't put it under a bushel, you don't put it under the bed. And it says, you put the lamp on a lampstand. And another word for that is on a platform.
Mm,
So if you have a light, which God has given you, and your work is your light, right? It's the parable of the talents. Jesus says this over and over again. I've given you this. I expect you to do something with it. The parable of the talents. The guy says, well, I did this, I invested, and the master says, well done. Here's 10 more. Come into the joy of your master. Here comes Mr. Five. I did this, I got 5 more. Well done. And this guy says, "Oh, you know what? I was nervous, so I buried it. I hope you're okay because I know you were mad about that." And he's like, "Okay, get out." So, like, there's that. He's expecting us to work at what he's given us. We're not supposed to bury it. And how many of us have buried our work in a drawer? I mean, literally buried our work in a drawer. God gave you a story, you wrote it with your heart, and then you're like, whoop, and you slide it right into a drawer.
mm,
You're putting your light under literally under something. And he's saying, "Take it out of the drawer, put it on a platform." So building your platform and working at your platform and making it so that people can see it, that is actually scriptural
mm,
because you want your light to so shine before men, not so that you get a swelled head and you're like, puffed up. He says, "Let your light so shine before men that they may glorify your Father which is in heaven."
mhm,
So if you're hiding it, not only are you not getting any benefit out of it, not only are you taking something God gave you and like burying it, you're also you're preventing or stymieing God's glory that he wants to show through that. You're keeping people from glorifying God because you're getting in your own way and you're getting in the Lord's way. He's
mm.
given you this light to shine, so shine it and don't hide it under a bushel, hide it under a bed. We put them in a little box and we put them under the bed, right? So, I
Yeah.
mean, we're literally disobeying God when he
Mhm,
tells us, do not do this with what I gave you. So
mm,
I look at this as when he gave me this book, I was like, well, great. So I wrote it. And I had, you write these things and you're bubbling with all of this fun, and then you have to get down to the dirty work of like, now I gotta rewrite, now I gotta edit, and that's all part of the work. But remember when the Lord was making creation, and after each thing he did, it said he looked at it and he said, "This is good."
Mhm.
So when he gives you a good work and you look at it and you say, "Well, this is bad," what is that saying?
Mhm.
Or you're like, "I don't want anybody to see this." You are you're literally putting a barrier between what God wants you to get out there. What does he say over and over again? "Publish the good works. Let my works be seen before people." Constantly. And if your work is more for a Christian audience, just remember all those Psalms that says, "I will publish your works," or "I will talk about your works. I will proclaim your glory among your people," or "among the nations." Get the word out there. How beautiful are the feet of them who bring the good, and it actually says, who publish the good news. Jesus said, "I'm the author and the finisher of your faith." God likes words. He wrote a whole book and then he didn't hide it under somewhere. He said, "I want to share it." So I think of marketing as just like, I have something that I want you to know about, and I'm going to share it in a way that tells you, "Hey, this is for you. You over there. You, older woman who is an empty nester now, who's feeling invisible, ignored, disenfranchised, you feel like nobody hears you, nobody sees you. Guess what? You read this book, you read All Men Are Liars, and you're like, oh, wait a minute. Somebody hears me. Somebody sees me. Somebody honors that part of my life that nobody's talking about and nobody's writing about. Publishing has said, your story doesn't matter.
Mm.
And I'm here to say, oh, yes, it does, sister. And I'm celebrating it and I'm bringing you it and I'm reminding you this was super important. This was an important part of your life. And I think these stories need to be told. If you lived through a history, by golly, you better write about it. If you're a writer,
Mm.
you better put it out there. So that's how I do it. And I loved your XYZ thing because and that really helped me. You did a great podcast on XYZ. And it was like, who are you doing this for? And why are you doing this and all? So I actually was up at 1 o'clock in the morning this morning writing it. And my XYZ, thank you, Rachel, for keeping me up at 1 o'clock in the morning, was my books help former Jesus people re-experience their first encounter with Christ so they can reconnect with their first love and passion for Jesus and live free.
Mm. I love that. I love that. Oh, I love that you have such a clear vision of who you're serving with your book. I write, a certain genre of books.
Right.
I write a story for this person, for this reader, and it just so happens to fill in the romance or the
Yes,
historical, like
it
it's
falls into this
whatever.
category, right.
Right? It doesn't matter that it falls into that category because first and foremost, the genre is the fact that it's a story for this person that you've identified so beautifully. And so I love that so much.
Well, I feel like when I'm looking for books, I'm looking for something that we all look for a character that we can identify with, right?
Oh, yes, for sure.
We look at that and we say, "Oh, I could be that person." When I look at that and I just say, "Okay, I couldn't find any books for me."
Mhm.
There were no books written, and I did my due diligence, and I looked for comp titles of '70s, late '60s, early '70s romance novels. There were 0.
I know when I read
0.
about what your book was about, I was like, holy cow, I don't think I've ever seen a book like that. And I
Right.
want to read it.
I'm
And
excited. Well, I'll tell you, this is what's super exciting for me, Rachel, is when my cover designer, who is a dear, dear, wonderful person, she caught the vision. I gave her a incredibly detailed, incredibly annoying, I'm sure, creative brief. It was like right down to don't use this color. This is not a
yes,
70s color. I was really super picky. And she said when she was working on it, her 18-year-old daughter walked past her workstation and she went, oh, wow, that's such a cool cover. And then later, her husband walked past the station, and of course, the title of my book is All Men Are Liars. He walked past and he looked and he goes, "Gee, I hope that's not true."
uh,
And I thought, "Oh, that's pretty cool that an 18-year," because although my target audience is, Jesus people who lived that period and wanna reconnect with it, there are a lot of younger people, a lot of younger readers, women in particular, who are fascinated with the 1970s.
mhm,
They love
yeah.
the clothes, they love the fashion, they love the music, and they're intrigued. And this this part of history, this was the Nixon era, right?
Mhm.
So when you write "All Men Are Liars" on the front cover, everyone that lived through the Nixon era is like, "Amen. Amen. We know you can't trust anybody over 30. We know the establishment is just out to get us. You've already hooked that generation's in the amen corner." But you've got, this whole concept of, the people saying, this is my era. This is what I understand. This is who I am." And I'm grateful because the only book I could find was Daisy Jones and the Six, which somebody categorized under family fiction. I'm like, "Did they even read the
Yeah,
book? I did
yeah.
what?"
Not
So, not having a comp thing, I feel like I'm in a, pioneering mode here, and I'm not really
Mhm.
crazy about that. I would have loved to just sort
Yeah.
of hitched my wagon to a bunch of other people going,
Yes.
but this was the last great spiritual awakening in America.
Mhm.
The Jesus Revolution was the last, like, documented
Right.
spiritual awakening, and that's significant. So
Mhm.
when big publishing comes along and says nobody's interested in that, or that's
Yeah.
unsellable, that's a no man's land, I just say, "Well, I beg to differ." I think there's enough people out there that want to hear stories from that time and want to know that they're heard, that their
Mhm.
era is being celebrated and acknowledged even. That's what I meant when I said that going indie means never having to say you're sorry. I don't
Mhm.
have to say I'm sorry to myself. Like,
Mhm.
"I'm sorry I couldn't let you write that, but it wasn't a moneymaker. There was no
Right.
paycheck in that." Or I'm sorry to my readers and say, "I'm sorry, but nobody wants to hear about this, so I'm just gonna let this story slide, and I'm gonna find something that's more
Right.
popular."
Right. Oh, man. That's such an encouraging word that you've just shared with us. Just sharing from your heart, sharing from your journey, sharing from your experiences that you've walked through. I so appreciate the intentionality that you're approaching with this book for your reader. Like you can't not listen to you and not know that the passion is going to be there. It's going to be there when you publish it. It's going to be there for the reader when they pick it up. They're going to hear your heart on the page. They're going to see it in the cover. I took a look through your social media and I'm like, she knows her like your social media, your website, all of that. We could talk about branding and all those little things, but
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think at the heart of what I would hope that the listener takes away from our conversation is that marketing is not the necessary evil that we think it is. It is a way in which God can move your message to a reader. It's the way in which God connects your work to somebody that he wants it to connect to.
Yes.
But also, it just flows out of a heart to serve, right?
Mhm, mhm.
And we can talk about the importance of branding, the importance of your copy being very reader oriented. We can talk about how to make it succinct and, punchy and how titling is so important. Like your title matters, how you've titled your novel and it captures it. It is all men are liars. Honestly, you sent me an email saying, "Hey, I would like to be on your podcast." And I was like, "Who is this person?" Because I hadn't heard of you yet. And I read about your title, All Men Are Liars, and my immediate first reaction to it was, "Oh, I bet this is not a Christian writer."
How
And
about that?
then I scrolled down and read the synopsis and I went, "What a juxtaposition that this is the title and this is the storyline, and I wanna see where they connect." And it intrigued me, right?
Oh, great.
All of that is a marketing technique, a marketing
Yes.
tactic, right?
Mhm.
All of those tactics we can learn. It's a craft, just like
Yes,
our writing is a
exactly,
craft.
exactly.
But when we take a step back and look at why we market in the first place,
Yeah, yeah.
why we promote in the first place, it flows out of a desire to serve the reader. It
Yes.
flows out. Every choice we make is an intentional one to get it in front of our reader. And we don't have to feel slimy about that. We don't have to feel that
No,
we need to
no.
trust in all the metrics, not trust in all the numbers. We just have to step out in obedience and know that this is
Yeah.
part of the process of getting our book into the hand of the reader. So I want to thank you so much for coming on the podcast today and
My
sharing
pleasure.
with us all that you have. It's been so encouraging to me as a writer, and I know it'll be super encouraging to the
Oh, thank
listeners.
you. I'm so glad.
So before we go, I want to make sure that our listeners know how to find you I want you to tell us a little bit about your novel. Tell us all that they need to know because I want them to make sure to grab the book if they want to. So,
Yeah, I would love to. Thank you for giving me that opportunity, Rachel. Pre-orders for All Men Are Liars are going to be open in mid-August on Amazon. We're still in kind of the cleanup formatting phase right
yeah.
now with the indie publishing, and you know what that's like.
Yep.
And it's first in a series of the Jesus Revolution romance series. Books 2 and 3 are already in the works, and all of them are set in some of the most iconic events and locations of the Jesus movement, and with the gutsy, high-stake love stories that I call them Sweet-yet-swoony, because if you get a love story and, like, the guy gives her a peck on the cheek at the end of the book, I'm just like, "Okay, that's maybe a happily ever after, but in somebody else's book," but I'm kinda cheesed out there. And the other thing I wanted to get through was that 100% of the profits of the Jesus Revolution romance series is going to Young Life.
Mhm.
100% of the profits. Because Young Life is what got me as a young person in the '70s, and it's still going strong, and it's still meeting young people where they are. I'm not affiliated with Young Life at all. But, the Lord just kept saying to me, "This is your first fruits,
Mm.
and your first fruits belong to me."
Oh, that's
So
so
I
sweet.
just gave it to him, and I was like, "I know you're gonna bless this. If I give it to Young Life, I know you're gonna bless it. But please visit me at marlinewilliams.com," and Marlene is spelled Marline. So marlinewilliams.com. And, if you go and visit me there and you decide to sign up for my email, which I hope you all will, you will find that there's gonna be a special goodie for your listeners, but the standard goodie is a Spotify list of 1970s Jesus rock music and, like, the hits of the day. What you would hear if you were lounging by the pool in 1972. You would hear this over the PA. I can almost smell the chlorine in the fries. Oh my gosh. A lot of the songs that are in this playlist are in the book, so it's almost like an Easter egg hunt as you go through the book, you're like, "Oh, I heard that on the Spotify list, that's so cool." So you can whistle and sing along with the main character. All my socials are there, so you can click onto them. But the special goodie for your audience is that I have a deleted scene from the book that it was
Wow.
just a bridge too far. So I took it out and I thought, "I'm gonna hold on to this and use it for something special." So I'll give you the link so that you can put it in the show notes. Um, but the story is, this young Jesus freak, her name is Dana Whitman, like the sampler, and, she has just become a Jesus she got baptized in the Potomac River in 1973, so she is on to go to Christian college, and she's so excited because she thinks it's going to be just like the book of Acts. Everybody's a Jesus person, she's gonna feel right at home. What she doesn't realize is that it's a very conservative, very stuffy Bible college. And oh, by the way, everybody that I know that has read this that has gone to Bible college has said to me, "Is this my college you're talking about? I am not talking about your college." Everybody so this was kind of a universal thing. In the Jesus movement, when the Jesus people started going back into the sort of, like the orthodoxy, they were not always welcomed with open arms, let's put it that way. This young lady has never had a date in her life, and she thinks, "Well, now that I'm a Christian, I should dress like a Christian. I should be very conservative, very modest, very, looking like Marsha Brady." And so she goes off to school and she tries to conform by faking it. She's a theater major, so she's very good at disguising herself. But of course, her heart cannot be disguised.
Mhm.
And her disguise works a little too well. Her camouflage works a little too good. She, attracts the attention of the campus Romeo or Casanova or Wolf, whatever you wanna call him, and also a very nice young man who is a peacenik and a, pre-med student. So now she has these 2 guys that are interested in her, but she is afraid that to show her real self. Part of the title refers to, Jesus says in his word, "I want to have, truth in the inmost being." She's
Mm.
not being true to herself. She's living this, phony existence. And she's afraid that if she reveals who she is, things are gonna fall apart. So the question is, does she follow her free-spirited heart, or does she, fake it and have to keep faking it for the rest of her time?
Oh, I cannot wait to read it. I'm excited about it. Um, so definitely I will put the link in the show notes. Make sure you
Thanks.
guys go check out Marlene socials and give her a follow and sign up for her newsletter so that you know when pre-orders
Please
open.
do.
And am just wanting to thank you again, Marlene, for coming on the podcast and just sharing your wisdom with us and your
My
encouragement. We
pleasure.
really, really appreciate it. So thank
I'll
you.
add one extra thing. This is my debut novel, and I'm also indie publishing a Christmas novella that's part of a series that's a multi-author anthology that's called Christmas in the Cascades, as in the Oregon Cascades Mountain. And my part of that is called Wild and Sweet, and it's set in 1957 and 1967, and it is a sort of a Western cowboy kind of romance, that I'm had so much fun writing. So I'm encouraging everybody that if they like that genre, this is a story of a mythical town in Oregon, and it goes across 150 years. It starts at the beginning of the town, and each author took a separate era and wrote a love story about a bell tower in the middle of this town.
Oh, that sounds so intriguing. And can they find out about that through your website or how would they find out?
Yes, yeah, it'll be,
Okay.
promoted on my website as soon as we get, we are still working through covers because everybody's got their own little cover, so we're
Yeah.
working through that, but you'll learn about it there, and you'll also watch for there's gonna be some promotions of Christmas in July on Instagram, and so we're gonna promote it a little bit there too.
Oh, how fun. Well, thank you for telling us about that as well. So thank you, Marlene, for coming on the podcast. It has been a lot of fun. And thank you to those of you who are listening in to the podcast today. Thank you for joining us. If you enjoyed what Marlene said and were encouraged by it, I just encourage you to share it with another writer who maybe needs to hear some of these encouraging words as well. And if you are on YouTube watching this, drop us a comment and let us know what part of the conversation resonated with you, and what you would like to see more of on the podcast. And I just want to thank you again for joining us, and we will see you next time. Bye.